Hey guys, how are you? Thank you so much for tuning in again. And today's guest, she was born and raised in Kenya, and then she relocated to the US, and she is a family attorney here in America. And she has a wealth of information, you guys, about the law and what it means when it comes to family issues. So you guys make sure that you share this video with your friends, with your family members, because I am very sure this will help somebody. So she's going to discuss a wide range of topics from domestic violence issues that could affect you or a friend or a family member, be it a man or a woman, what you need to do and what you need to know as far as the law here in America is concerned. She's also going to talk about issues to do with child custody, child support, alimony, and she's also going to talk about prenup. Yep, we're going to talk about prenup. You're going to hear from an attorney why you absolutely need to consider having a prenup before you say I do. It's good to be equipped because you never know with life. And at the same time, you might know somebody, either a family member, like I said, or a friend, or even in some of the groups that we are members of, you will see somebody ask a question and, hey, if you watch this video, you might be able to help somebody who is in a situation. And please understand, these issues don't just affect women, they affect men too. So please share with everybody that you know, because the laws are very complex here, especially when it comes to things like alimony, which is not something that we do back in Kenya. Maybe they do it now, I don't know. So sit back and enjoy the show. Hello, Wamaitha.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming. I very, very much appreciate you coming to do this interview with me. I know it's a work day for you, so we're going to go ahead and get started so we don't waste so much time. So, in a nutshell, let's get to know who is Wamaitha. Where are you coming from? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'll tell you that my name is Wamaitha Kahagi, Kahagi being my married name. If you knew me when I was in Kenya, I was known as Lois Wamaitha Wamatu. Originally, born in Nairobi, went to school in Nairobi. I went to school in St. George's. I went to school when my parents moved to Nyahururu. I went to Starehe, then I went to boarding school in Nyeri. Ultimately went to high school in Limuru Girls School, and then campus in Kenyatta University, where I studied education, French, and literature.
Mm-hmm.
And so then from that point, I worked a little bit in about 6 months, won the green card, and now I'm here in the US.
All right. So before we talk about you relocating to the US, so you said you went to KU. Was that when people go to KU to become a teacher, or was that something else?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I went to KU. Yes. I wanted to go to, I wanted to go to do law. Didn't qualify for law because if you remember, it was very competitive actually. And so I think my second choice, I went to my third choice, which was, that was education.
Okay.
So that's how I ended Kenyatta University. Okay. Yes, to become a teacher. I was to become a languages teacher. So I studied French and literature. I actually went to teach at Premier Academy for the 6 months. And in between that time is when I got my green card.
Okay, so you taught for just about 6 months after KU in Kenya before you moved to America? Okay. All right, so that's good. And then we are going to talk about your relocation.
So I usually say just a little, going back a little bit, growing up, how you feel like you're destined for something than where you are.
Yeah.
So my brothers will tell you that, yes, I grew up in Nairobi. I grew up amongst them, but my physical body was there, but my mind was, I always felt like I was destined for something else, for being somewhere other than in Kenya.
Wow. So you are already dreaming since you are little about relocating and moving from Kenya, and your dream became a reality. So you only worked in Kenya for a few months, so you are still young, and now you have got this green card and you have to relocate to America. Tell us about that. Did you know people here? Was it easy? Was it challenging? What challenges did you overcome? And also the culture shock. I always ask people, what was it like for you? What was America like for you the first time you got here?
I grew up with my family, but I also grew up with my cousin. After we moved to Nyahururu, I also lived with my cousins who are in Nairobi.
Okay.
And so, so we grew up, watching movies, watching life as it was in America. So we all had these dreams, and I remember we would, do these acting like we are in these shows or in these movies, like Americans or like that kind of a thing.
Okay.
So coming here, when I won the green card, coming here, I came to my cousins who were already here and living in New Jersey.
Okay.
So I'd say the transition was pretty smooth. I went, and again, benefited from the fact that I was, legal. I had legally immigrated here. So it was a matter of obtaining my working documents and getting that first job. And then, moving on from there.
Okay.
The culture shock was there, even though I thought that I had been, well exposed to life in America. It was still, challenging in terms of, just something as basic as your accent and people hearing you speak and thinking that because you have an accent, it means that you're somewhat, maybe a little not as intelligent because, you're speaking English, but you're not speaking English the way you're supposed to.
Yeah.
So of course, you start to develop that American accent so that you can be understood.
Yeah.
So I went through all that. My first job in this country was as a babysitter for a couple that lived in Highland Park. I was pretty new. So, I'll tell you, it was May 1998. So I'm here in May 98.
Yeah.
So I get my job. Few weeks after that, so let's say June, so it's somewhat the summertime. I remember this couple leaving a 9-month-old baby with me. So they had 2 kids. One was 2, another was 9 months. And they left them with me because they had to travel to the West Coast. I just couldn't understand it. I just could not understand how these white people left me. They don't know me.
Wow,
they babysit 9 months, and they told me that, you can go, you can, sleep on our bed. Don't worry about it. I'm like, what? And
how long were they gone?
2 days. It was like a weekend.
2 days. Okay.
Right. So going Friday, they leave me their car and they say, you can go off to take the kids to the Y and all this. I couldn't fathom it.
Wow.
And so, so it started from there. Then my next job, I got a job, how you do, you go to an agency and they put you in some sort of receptionist and administrative type jobs. And, and so it went from there. That's kind of how it started. It was challenging, I cannot say.
Okay, so question for you. So you get your first job, you're babysitting here and there, you're getting jobs here and there, but you're coming from Kenya, having gone through, having finished or completed your education at KU. So are you here now thinking, okay, am I going to get a teaching job here, or do I need to go back to school, or do I just focus on working? What are you thinking at that point as far as either education or getting a job in the line of your profession, which was teaching at that point?
Yeah, so there's that's going through your mind, and again, you're also thinking, all right now, I need to work. I need to work. I need to get my car. Mostly I'm thinking of working. Yeah. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, what can I do? I am now in America. I can really do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can be anything.
Yes.
So what is that thing that I want to be? I can be anything. I'll tell you, I wanted to be an opera singer. I wanted to go Broadway.
Broadway.
So
here we come.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you go to New York to try to figure out how to be on Broadway? Or that was just a castle you were building in your mind?
I really was really seriously thinking about it. And it was so I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do it? And because I don't have, those examples of how to do it, I'm just fumbling. I remember I'd buy CDs of Broadway singers, and I would be, learning all the songs because I wanted to be ready when I figure out how to get to Broadway, at least I'll know the songs. Yeah. So that's basically what I was thinking. School, I wasn't really sure, what I was going to do in school if I did go to school. But everything was on the table. Everything was on the table.
But do you sing though? Do you sing a church? Like
not in church.
The idea of Broadway get into your head? Like I can go on Broadway and perform there.
Because in Kenya, I was part of a theater group. Every so often I was so I was theater adjacent. So we did some shows in Kenya. Okay. So I always enjoyed performing in the arts.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's good. Oh, you're a big dreamer. So you come here. So now what happened? Broadway does not happen. What happened?
So Broadway is still out there. And then so then this was, so it was 98, 99. So what happened at that time? A lot of people were into IT work. Yeah. So there was a whole, IT networking. I got my receptionist job and I got my administrative assistant job. Shortly after that, a coworker came to me and she told me that, hey, by the way, I just wanted to let you know that they're going to be letting you go tomorrow.
Why?
I didn't even know. When I came to work the next day, I came with this big bag. I put all my things in there and, just carried on work like nothing was going on. Then just before I left, the main director comes to me. And now I know this is when they're telling me that, well, we're going in a moving direction. We're moving in a new direction. So we're going to have to let you go. So anyway, that happened. So I went off.
Question for you. They don't even give you like any notice. It's like, we are letting you go and like today or tomorrow is your last day.
Something, yes. And because I don't know that, you're supposed to get 2 weeks notice or this or that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. During that time when I was at this receptionist job, at night, I was going to IT classes.
Okay. So you had already enrolled.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was doing my IT classes. Yeah. And so I already knew where I was. So when this guy is telling me that, hey, we have to let you go, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be fine. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to be fine. And so he seemed to be surprised and even asked me, oh, so do you have something else lined up? I said, no. And I went on. And so shortly after that, I got a job working for AT&T as a network engineer.
Okay. Wow. So how do you become a network engineer though? I didn't hear the part where you did engineering in any school. How did that happen? Miracle.
And that is America for you.
That's America.
That is America.
Wow. Okay, tell us about that, honestly. So how do you become an engineer with AT&T? Yeah.
So you're taking these classes. I remember it was this school that was run by Nigerians, and you gotta give Nigerians their credits.
The IT classes that you're doing? Oh, it's a Nigerian academy or something, school?
Yeah, we'll call it a Nigerian academy. Okay. But basically,
okay.
So here's the thing. It's people who come together and they figure out that if I'll teach you these classes, for you to get a job as an IT tech, you need to take these certifications. So when you take these certifications, and then we can place you in these jobs that are just looking for this certification. So basically, they take you through the whole, it happens even now, especially with the H-1B and in the Indian community. So they take you through these courses. We had the CCNA, which is a certified networking engineer. We had the CCNP, we had the CCIE, which was now the highest.
So these are licensed, these are Leo schools, like licensed colleges, whatever. What is the word? Accredited? I don't know what's the word is.
No, I mean, okay, okay, let me put it this way. I didn't know all that. Okay. I wasn't looking for the license and the accredited. I was just looking for, okay, I've heard that this is something that people are doing, and they're getting jobs that are earning them like $90,000.
Wow.
So I need to figure out how they're doing that.
So you jump in.
So I jump in. So after work, I would go and we'd study from like 5 o'clock to like 11 o'clock at night. And I'd drive from like Edison to Jersey City and you know, do that course, do the exam. And then they had connects, like the place that I had, they had connects at AT&T. And so some other person is working at AT&T. You go for the interview, you know, the interview is another Nigerian man, and you know, they're
talk about connection. Oh, I didn't know that
I never forget those people. I never forget them, because then I went to the interview. And you know, you answer the questions that you're supposed to answer. The next thing you know, you're working. You're working as a networking engineer.
Well, how was that? What was that experience like? Now you're making all this money, I'm assuming, as a network engineer with AT&T.
Yes.
You're showering money you are not used to.
Yes, exactly. So there are many trips to Kenya, of course. There are many trips to Kenya. There's a lot of shopping to be done.
Yeah.
A whole lot of that.
Okay.
It was also an interesting time in my life as well.
Okay.
Because, you know, it's completely different environment. You know, I'll frankly say I really didn't know what I was doing, but for, you know, knowing that, you know, when this happens, that happens. When this happens, that happens.
Yeah.
That was really the job that we were doing. Okay. You know, troubleshooting issues, escalating issues.
Yeah.
We were basically monitoring the network and the wide area, like the internet, basically. Okay. That's what we were doing.
Are you done with the school now, or you're still going to school at night, or you done?
Well, that's a good point. So I'm sort of going back and forth, because once you do one certification, if you want to move to the next level, you have to continue going to school. Okay. So I was doing that as well. Okay. But then, so when I got the second certification, which was a CCNP, the next one was going to be a CCIE. And I picked at that point because I realized that I didn't have the fundamentals of computer information technology, called computer science, to be able to really understand what I was doing. Okay. So I knew I would very soon, I would, you know, I would have problems getting work. Yeah.
So, okay. So you continue with that. You're working for AT&T, and tell us how long you worked there, because we know you now as an attorney. So how did the whole transition happen from you doing IT, working as an engineer for AT&T, to the family lawyer that we know you to be? How long were you with AT&T, and what made you decide to change careers?
Yes. So basically, I mean, the AT&T, let's say from like 2000, it was a 3-year a 3-year contract.
Okay.
So then I believe, so 2002,
Mhm.
officially I leave AT&T.
Okay.
That also coincided with the time that I was pregnant with my first son.
Mhm.
And so it was like a natural end. Like
Okay.
now I was moving to this new other thing,
Mhm.
and really to figure out, okay, what do I really want to do? Because I didn't even tell you about how when I was trying to do my opera career, I used to go to I had this teacher that was in New York that was teaching me,
Mhm.
singing and classical music singing. And then,
So you were going
that
to
fell.
classes in New York, or you were doing it online?
I was doing in New York. I was taking the train to New York.
Wow.
That didn't last too long. It didn't
Okay.
last too long because, it was either IT, classical music.
Mhm.
It couldn't, things were just not
Yeah.
coming together. So
Yeah.
anyway, when I had my son,
Mhm.
I took some time off because I went into this stay-at-home mom phenomenon
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that was, and I guess it was also to like, I really needed to know, okay, what is it that I want to do? And of
Yeah.
course, because I had saved my money from working, all this money that I was working in IT. So
Yeah.
I had a bit of the ability
Mhm.
to stay home and raise my son for a little bit
Okay.
while I figured out what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So then at that point, I decided, well, what I really want to do is go to law school.
Wow. Which is what you had wanted to do in Kenya.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is what I really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So then how do I do it?
Yes.
So in my mind, I thought, okay, so the way to do it is because I have no idea about law in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about law in Kenya. My cousin was a lawyer who I greatly, greatly admired.
Mm-hmm.
I had friends who are lawyers. I had people that I had looked up to. You remember, the time I was growing up was during the whole, the movement from one party to multi-party.
Yes.
And remember, at the time,
Mm-hmm.
the people who are leading that whole charge were lawyers. So,
Mm-hmm.
the Yaras, the Paul Moites,
Yes.
those were like the people I looked up to.
Yes.
So coming here, I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I went to, I said, okay, I'm going to get a job in the New Jersey judiciary because
Wait, hold on one second. So you want to get a job in the judiciary, so you get your feet in there. So basically, whether you are doing admin work or whatever type of work, but you are in the legal system. Okay, that's smart though. Okay, tell us about that.
Yes, so that's what I did. And I applied, and I got a job.
Where?
And I went to Trenton and I went to work for the tax court.
What? Really?
Yeah, so I'm working as an admin for the tax court.
Okay. Wow, in Trenton.
So yes, in Trenton. So, and I'm thinking, oh, Trenton is like the capital of New Jersey. So I'm at the seat of power somewhat. And okay,
Are you an admin?
I did that.
Are you working as an admin
Yes.
assistant? Okay.
Yes, I'm working as an admin, as just one of those people who just, filing. At one point, we were counting, we were all these things. And I'm wondering, what am I doing here? And I remember, getting frustrated. I remember at one point even being written up. Now I understand it as being written up and being put on a performance improvement. And then I objected to the being written up, and I even engaged the union, and it was a big thing because actually, yes, because of it, they had said that they were not going to promote me to a second level. And I felt it wasn't justified. So I objected, went to the union, and a whole investigation was done, and this and that. And yes, a whole investigation was done. So this was 2004.
What was your basis of appealing to, of your objection? Like, if you're not, or you did not know you're not giving it your best, or did you think that there was some other motives of
Correct.
writing you up.
I felt that there were some other motives because number one, I came to find out, I went on vacation to Kenya, came back, and I found out that apparently when I got back, things were not done, that you left your things all undone, all this. And when I really check, I don't really see it.
Wow.
But I'm like, but then but nobody, and that was what I objected to. I said, nobody told me that. All this time, nobody told me that there was something wrong, but only after I go to Kenya and come back, now there are all these things that when you were away, we discovered all these things that were not done.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. So that was the basis of my objection. Okay. So, and that's when they said that they were not going to I couldn't even believe. Already, I felt like I was working beneath my capacity.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you tell me that you're not even going to give me my next position. So that was the basis of my objection.
So how did that go? How did the investigation go?
They still gave me my promotion. Okay. But the investigation continued because I think I also said something that I felt discriminated against. At that point, I didn't realize how charged those things were.
Yeah.
But that's what I felt. And I think that's why, despite them giving me my promotion, because they did give me my promotion.
They got scared too.
Now, even as I'm talking to you is when I'm now putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
But so they told me, so I got my promotion, but the investigation continued. How did I know the investigation continued? Was because, again, during that time, I'm still at working my job. I'm also applying to law school. So I applied to law school. I get admitted to law school. And that's another thing too. I applied to only one law school, Rutgers University. And during that time I'm applying to school, I'm still working.
Yeah.
So eventually in 2006, I left that job and went to law school.
So you're doing law school full-time?
Yeah, so now I went to law school full-time.
Okay.
So in law school, that's when I got the letter that told me that the investigation, they had completed their investigation.
Wow. How many years is that? How long did that take?
I know. I was so confused. I was like, what is this even? I don't even care because, they said something about, well, you should, there were still some issues and this and that. But then I was done. I was gone. I was like, whatever. Bye. I'm already to my next.
Yeah.
Right.
Bye, Felicia.
Oh
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
So 2006, 2009, I was in law school and I went to law school full time.
So how many years was that?
So it was 3 years. So by 2009, yes, is when I graduated.
And yes. You did the school full time. You were not working. You were just focusing on school.
Yes, I was just focusing on school again because, well, my husband was working and then I also had some savings. And of course, you also get some law school loans as well.
Okay.
So, a combination of all that. And I also have to say, this is the other key thing. I was able to go to school full time because by then I had my second son.
Okay.
Because my parents actually came from Kenya.
Oh, that's
and lived with us for like a year. Nice. While I went to law school.
Okay.
And then after that, different relatives would come. My in-laws as well came, gave us a stint of assistance. How childcare in this country is.
I know. I absolutely know.
Yeah. Healthcare is an abomination.
That's why I tell people in Kenya when they say, oh, I just want to go to America and be a maid, a house girl. I'm like, are you kidding me? We can't even afford a house girl here. Like, that's one of the most expensive paying job because they think that it's like how it is in Kenya. Me nikifika to America, I'm a house girl, I'll be okay. You'll be a rich person if you can get a house girl job here. So I understand when I tell people here we can't afford a house girl. It's super, super expensive. Yeah, so the parents did you good to come and help you raise your kids while you went to school.
Yes, yes, and that's how I was able to, actually do it for 3 years, still keep a home and, get things done
Yeah.
because of assistance from home. Yeah.
Amazing. That's awesome, awesome, awesome. So now you're done with law school. Where do you go? Do you go to work in a farm? Do you start your own farm? What do you do after law school?
Okay, so then again, after that, so, get done. Again, graduate during a time, it was now 2008, 2009 was this, huge financial crisis
Yes.
in
Yes.
the US, and they're telling us all that, there are no jobs, you can't get any, legal jobs because, especially here in New York, many of the jobs are predicated on, the financial, the financial industry,
Yeah.
corporate and all that. So it's almost like, a snowball effect,
Yes.
people are feeling like, well, there are no jobs.
Yeah.
When you say there are no jobs, then there are no jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I, I started again, just looking for work here and there. I did some per diem. Per diem means you're paid hourly, there are no contracts, nothing, just, based on availability. Then at some point I went to the, again, back to Trenton. They had this volunteer lawyer so that you're just not doing anything.
Okay.
Right. So again, the same thing, going back, like I told you, who my, the role models that I had, are still back in Kenya. I remember these lawyers who had, their, Jenga and Co associates, or who's actually a lawyer, even now.
Yes.
Mukuri and Mishuki and Co advocates was, this cousin of mine who was who I really admired, worked for Mishuki and Co, Moremi and Co. All those were, those firms are what I grew up knowing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I thought, I felt I wanted to be here in America. So in even graduating and getting these jobs here and there, I was in my mind trying to figure out, how can I be that lawyer?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know much about law school, but when you're in law school, do you decide what type of lawyer you're gonna be in law school, or does that happen later on? Like, you're a family lawyer. Some people are criminal lawyers. Others are, I don't know what type of lawyers. Is that something you decide while you're still in school, or that happen at what point?
So yeah, so when you're in law school, you kind of start, figuring out what interests you.
Okay.
So for me, I thought I'd be interested in, I was interested in corporate law. And, like many of my class, I was taking many classes in corporate law because, I thought, well, corporate law is what I want to be, that lawyer again, that I grew up seeing on TV.
Yes.
So what ended up happening was I did this legal clinic. So a legal clinic is where you actually, as a student, you are, you have a professor who directs this legal clinic, but you also get an opportunity to work with actual clients. And so with the tutoring of a lawyer, with the tutoring of the professor, you get to work with clients, you get to advise them, and so on. And I remember my professor saying that I have a quality that, if I remember correctly, she said an empathetic quality, that you're able to speak to people really well. So I took that, and she said, and I think talking to her, I said, what do you think I would do? And she said, I think you'd really do very well in family law.
Oh.
So that was in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So, but I hadn't taken any family law classes.
Wow.
So what ended up happening is, at some point, while I was still trying to figure out what is what, where is where, I got an opportunity to do a clerkship for a family court judge in Middlesex County.
A clerkship?
Yes. So a clerkship is as a law clerk before you pass the bar and before you become, before you're sworn as an attorney, you have this opportunity to work for a judge as a clerk. And essentially you're assisting the judge in preparing, documents, like you do like the first draft of some of the decisions. You read, what we call motions when, you file something in court and you want the judge to take action on it. You as a law clerk have the opportunity to read it, do the first of what you think the judge should decide. And then you give it to the judge. It was an opportunity to have discussions about the law, about how things should go, so on and so forth. And you do that for a year. So that's what I did. Yes, for a year. I worked as a law clerk for a family court judge.
You work, and that's what I was going to ask you. Did you work in a family court? Okay, so you answered that. All right, so you are done with your clerkship for a year in family court. And so what happened next?
So what happens next? So then after that, so then now you graduate, you're done, and now you're trying to find work, right? So you're interviewing, you're showing that, hey, I did this, I worked as a law clerk. And so you're interviewing for jobs everywhere, trying to find what you can.
So you're looking for a job in these other big law firms now, like?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yes, you're looking for work in a law firm. What ended up happening was I had three colleagues of mine, three of my classmates in law school. So these three classmates of mine, at one point we just, I think at that time I'm doing the volunteer work in Trenton, right? So I'm interviewing, I'm doing the volunteer work. And one of them calls me and he's like, hey, what are you doing? Let's open up a firm. Let's do this. And so
the volunteer work is the one you're telling us. Are you representing clients for free, or are you advising them over the phone? What is volunteer work?
So the volunteer work in Trenton, what I'm doing there is just basically I am support staff for the lawyers.
Oh, okay. Got you. All right. Yes. So you are not in court yourself and doing all. Okay. All right. Got you. Okay.
No. So I am support staff for the lawyers. I'm an attorney, so I will understand some things, but then I'm support staff. Okay. So these friends of mine, my classmates, we say, okay, let's start up a firm, because we were all in the same boat, graduated the same year, trying to figure out what we're doing. Let's start up this firm. So basically that's what we did. I say, and it starts that way. All right. One of them said, I found an office here. All right. And, he was very quick with the movement and this. I needed more planning, but, I was ready to jump in. All right. He's found an office. This is what we're going to do. But what I did was I said, okay, they actually joined forces and had, created an entity. They created an LLC.
LLC, yeah.
Yes, I said I would be there, but I'm not, it's almost like an office sharing thing, because in my mind, I was thinking, look, if this doesn't work, I need to be able to figure out what I'm doing. I really need to know that this is really what I want to do.
So you are not going to be a part of the LLC that they were creating?
No, I was not part of the LLC. But I was part of, the firm in terms of sharing expenses and being part of the, we really were partners just for that one thing.
Okay.
So this was, 2012. 2012 is now when I'm doing all this. And so it began.
Wow. All right. So now you're working with these partners in their own law firm that they formed, but you are somehow still part of them.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And with my own, I am my own entity. So like I will have my own, so just so you understand, I will have my own letterhead. They
Yes.
would have their own letterhead. I would have my own letterhead, but
Yes.
we're in the same
The
office.
same. Okay, I got you. I got you. And now you
Yes.
are practicing family attorney.
Yes. And at that time we used to say that we'd practice what we called door law,
Mhm.
meaning whatever walks in the door is what we are taking, and that's who we are representing.
Okay.
So yes, so we did that.
Mhm.
My very first client was a Kenyan who
Mhm.
had a child support case
Mhm.
that had some, some Kenyan angle to it.
Mhm.
And, I represented him. I don't know if he knew that he was my first client or whatever, but we did it.
Yeah.
We went through it. We got done.
Mhm.
And that's all it took. It's
Wow.
just that first client.
Yes.
And from there, you're going.
Wow, that's amazing. So quickly, because I really want us to touch on a few topics, and I know it's we've been here for almost an hour. Quickly. So at what point do you like go your own way from these other people you're sharing? I guess it's not necessarily going your own way because you're already on your own. Do you stick with
Yes.
them or do you move and start your own law firm?
So no, so basically like the one of them went to New York. So she
Okay.
decided that she was going to be based in New York. So
Okay.
she's, gone off to New York, done amazing things in New York, and
Okay.
that's how that went, right?
But they all
The
family attorneys or were they all family
Yes,
practicing attorneys? Okay.
generally, well, the one in New York is a family law attorney that
Okay.
has run a family law practice.
Yeah.
The other one was business, had business
Mhm.
and a bankruptcy, debt collection law, did
Okay.
that,
Okay.
but and primarily now corporate law work
Okay.
primarily.
Okay.
So what ended up happening, over the years,
Mhm.
I'm building more of a solid family practice.
Yeah.
The other thing also is that, they also grew and we needed more space. That was the other thing that, caused us to kind of, establish our own
Mhm.
entities
Okay.
because or start to or made us separate because now he got more employees, so he needed more space, and
Mhm.
he left me at the space that we were at because
Okay.
that space was good enough for me for
Okay.
me and my paralegal.
Mhm.
We were good to go.
Oh,
Yes.
perfect. Awesome,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. So now you have your own law firm and you have your first client, thank God, a fellow Kenyan, and you push through
Yes.
and you get that one client open. I'll give you all the confidence to go to court and represent them. And I want us to talk a little bit about family law. I know you practice in New Jersey, and I know every state is different, but to the most, I think a lot of things are similar. But you're a member of the Kenyan community here. So I want us to address or to talk to our community because there are things that our community sometimes struggles with, either because we don't know the laws. For example, there are issues of domestic violence that sometimes happen within our community. And it could be both ways. It could be it's the man who is suffering domestic violence. Most of the time we tend to think it's only women. Of course, women are the mostly affected, but you find that there are women or even men who suffer in silence. They are scared because they don't know what the laws are. So talk to us about what our community should know about domestic violence, which sometimes can lead to divorce, to custody, to child support, and the whole 9 yards. So just talk to us, educate our community a little bit about these issues and any other issue that I may not mention.
So let me talk about domestic violence. I'll tell you, it's an area that I practice a lot. If I tell you that in a week I will represent clients, 2 to 3 clients at a time on domestic violence issues, that's it tells you that it's very prevalent and it is taken very seriously as it should. I'll tell you that, the things that we think about domestic violence as, it's the physical. It's, until you see a mark, then it is not domestic violence.
Yeah.
But we know, at least the law says that it is harassment. It's the repeated phone calls. It's repeated, insults, abuse, repeated verbal abuse. It is, control in terms of, let's say financial control that, somebody takes your documents and will not give your documents to you. All the way up until the physical. It has really serious ramifications. And I'll tell you the one thing that, and I know I'm a lawyer, and I'm not saying this that because I'm a lawyer that, I'm drumming business for myself or drumming business for lawyers. But when you're charged with a domestic violence, you have a domestic violence charge, it is very, very wise to seek the advice of a lawyer, because the ramifications are very consequential. So you get a final restraining order. So the consequence, at least in New Jersey, of domestic violence is you get a final restraining order. And I've seen final restraining orders against men, and I've seen final restraining orders against women. The ramifications are really significant because, one, you go into a database, you're there permanently.
So you're in the system permanently.
Yes.
A potential employer can see your record.
Yes, yes. A potential employer in certain in industries or certain professions can, have access to that domestic violence abuse registry.
Is it public? Is it public information?
It's not public. It's not public. It's not public information. The other thing is that you're fingerprinted. So now your fingerprints are in record somewhere. The other thing that you do, they tell you, is that you may have difficulty coming in and out of the country. You are subject to enhanced scrutiny. And so, and perhaps in New Jersey, the most serious of them is that it is the final restraining order is something that is permanent, unless it is removed by basically the person who it is protecting comes to court and says that they no longer need the protection of the restraining order. So, and I'll tell you that I've seen them handed, at least in Middlesex County and many of the counties, they're not that easy to obtain. So many people will go and say, I'm just going to go there and tell my truth. But you just don't know. You just don't know. We always talk about it, you're taking a chance. And we talk about it as gambling. And knowing those ramifications, especially for, for us, we are in a foreign country. It's still, in as much as, we are citizens, it's still a foreign country to us. We still don't quite understand how things are going. And to have this hand of a restraining order against you, that you cannot, get some jobs. And sometimes even the person that is going and who files for a restraining order, they don't even intend it to go that far.
What you're saying is, even the person filing, let's say maybe there was some fight, I don't know, not necessarily physical, the wife or the husband, whoever filed, I guess you call it filing a restraining order, they may not know how bad this can be to the other person. That's what you're saying. That doesn't mean they shouldn't if they're in danger, but you're just saying sometimes people are ignorant when it comes to what does it even mean that this person has a restraining order moving forward.
Yeah, precisely. And what are the ramifications of it, vis-a-vis the family? So for example, when you get a final restraining order, that means that you as a family can no longer live together. So the person who gets the final restraining order, the defendant, can no longer reside in that home. So for example, if that defendant was the primary earner in the family, so now that means that he has to find some other place to live, then has to now be responsible for two households. So now it destabilizes the financial the financial condition of the family, which is not to say that, there are people who really need they really need the protection of a restraining. But I think for the most part, it's for everybody to know just, yes, you got the final restraining order. What are the consequences, both to you who gets the protection of it, what are the financial consequences of it, and to you who's protected by it, what the consequences of it are. Because, ultimately, sometimes you find that people, even who need the final restraining order, find themselves going back into these dangerous situations because of the financial destabilization. So, and all this, when you have an attorney particularly a family law attorney, who understands this area of law, can be able to give you that, comprehensive advice. And can also be able to tell you that I'll tell, people that, you can represent yourself. Yes, you can. But you want to represent yourself knowing at least what to expect. Some of the courthouses in New Jersey have what we call domestic violence advocates, and they speak to both male and female. They're not, they're gender neutral. And so those people can also advise you at the courthouse how best to address, domestic violence. But in some, it is serious. It is taken seriously, and the consequences are serious as well.
So what you're saying is, one, people should be careful not to start with, to get caught up in all these issues. Of course, it's always going to be problems here and there in any household, but it should not escalate to a point where the police have to be called, and these restraining orders have to be issued. But if the person really need it, because there is also especially a lot of women that suffer in silence because they think, and the perpetrator doesn't have to be a fellow Kenyan. It could be an American, it could be a Nigerian, it could be somebody, whoever it is, the husband, the boyfriend, whoever it is, because we don't want people to feel like, oh my gosh, if this person get a restraining order, what's going to happen to, while you suffer yourself. So at the same time, I want you to talk to especially women and maybe even men too. I'm sure there are some men who suffer silently. They think, oh, maybe because I'm an immigrant, maybe I don't have papers, I can't report this, which usually that is not the case. Domestic violence is taken very, very serious in this country, regardless of your status, I believe. So talk to that person or even a new person here. Somebody was telling me of a case of somebody who had come here from Kenya. She was new. And every time alikuwa anataka to call the 911, this person would tell them they will come and they will deport you. So she stayed in that situation, a very toxic situation, for a long time. The guy knew, of course, that wasn't the case. So let's just try to talk to them and tell them they need to speak up if that is happening in the household.
Yeah, that's so true. I tell you that these communities that we have, let's say, for example, anytime I happen on Facebook and I see, Kwitu, these, I cannot overemphasize the power of these communities. The fact that somebody can go there and write, this is my situation that I'm going on, and then you have groundswell of women coming in and telling you this is what you do. To have that, these options, first of all, they're very empowering.
Yes.
The next thing is, when these things are going on in your household, whether it is male or female, when these things are going on in the household, because we talk about domestic violence as this violence that occurs between members of a household. We also talk about it, between dating partners and And we even talk about it, between relatives also in New Jersey. They're also covered under domestic violence, provided at one point they were household members.
Yes.
The point is, what usually makes some situations difficult, or you hear people say, well, you might go to court and you may not be believed, is the lack of proof, evidence, right?
Yeah.
How do we verify that this is going on other than what you're telling us? Yes, we believe you. We'll believe you. But what helps, it's belief plus. So if, let's say, somebody is at you, they're yelling, they're screaming, we now have our phones. And, if you just turn on the phone and, you have it on some sort of recording mechanism, and the person is, you can record them screaming and yelling, and just, you're telling somebody like me, this is what he does.
Yeah.
Right?
But
I
have a question for you, though. I know different states in the US have different laws. You talked about recording. I don't know whether New Jersey, I think New Jersey is one-party consent, and New Jersey, New York. But you go to other states like California, and I'm saying this because our viewers are from different states. A state like California is two-parties consent. You can't just record somebody. It's a crime in America, in some states. So can you tell them they need to, like, if I have to record somebody, I need to know what are the laws in my state, or how does that work?
Very, very good point. Absolutely. You can. And to that point, because if you go online and you go to wiretapping laws, or and you know how to do it in a way that that, okay, this is a reliable site, or a trustworthy site, you will see the ones that are one-party states and the ones that are two-party consent states. So you've been informed that, but that's not the only thing.
One-party consent, what does that even mean? That means if I'm talking to you, and I decide to record without telling you I'm recording you, does that mean I'm the one party?
Yes.
I am the one party that has consented to record you, even though you.
Correct.
What about if you are recording somebody in another state that requires two-party consent?
Then you have a problem, because it depends on where you're going to use that.
Okay. So if you use that in your state,
yes,
that's one case. But if you have a case in that particular state, then now you have a problem. Okay.
Then now you have a problem. But that's not the only thing that you can use, because you also have if somebody puts their hands on you, you have bruising. If somebody's doing something and then you tell a trusted person, and hopefully this trusted person, and the time you call up on them, they will be ready to come and say, yes, she told me, and right after it happened, she told me what had happened, and this is what I told her to do. Because the standard for the standard for a finding that is domestic violence or not is very low. It means it just, as long as you can just 51%, meaning as long as you can just slightly convince us that this happened, that's all we need. We don't need the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. So for sure, it's these things that you do, that I spoke with someone. So if I tell you, and then when I call that person, they say, yes, they called me and they told me, then I have there's more of a believability with you. And let's just say, somebody, they did something. What you did after tells us that, okay, that makes sense, that, based on what was done to them, this was the reaction they took. So let's say, for example, he takes your documents, like, let me hold your documents. And then, you keep asking, I need my documents. And now when that's happening, this is the other thing I say. At some point, you stop talking and you start texting and say, hey, I've asked you for my documents. How many times? What's going on? Why are you holding my documents? So that then you're able to show that, right? So there's many ways to do that, even though, if you're not able to record.
Okay. So that's definitely that's clear. I used to work for a domestic violence organization in New York City. So that's how I know some of these things. And I want them to know, because there's so many things you see on Facebook. So we need to let our people know that there are also hotlines, 24/7 hotlines, that if you're in a serious domestic violence case, like what we are talking about, you can call. I believe there's a national one. No matter what state you're in, you can call that number. And I believe what they do is they connect you to your state. Like every state has a domestic violence hotline. And if you're in trouble, anytime you call your state hotline, and I think if you see things, depending on where you are, you can keep that number. You can call these people. They have domestic violence shelters. I just hate that I see so many cases of people who are just trapped and they don't know what to do. And sometimes it's because we don't have the information. Now, domestic violence issues or non-domestic violence issues, then we have these issues of divorce, custody, child support. Can you touch a little bit on some of those issues that our people sometimes may not know? If you find yourself in a situation, unfortunately, these things happen. It's not just, they don't just happen to Americans, they happen to a lot of our community too, where people, for whatever reason, have to go through divorce or separation, or there is some custody battles and all that. Talk to us about a little bit about those things.
Sure. So, so I'm primarily a divorce and family law. So my main area of in family law is divorce.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'm going to say about divorce, you know, getting divorced in New Jersey, and many states, particularly if you have children and you have property, is a very expensive excursion. It's made even more expensive when people cannot get together to come up with their own solution for how they're going to get divorced. Because you have the law, but then you also have you as two people who have a family and who need to be able to move on successfully beyond beyond your marriage. And what I mean by that is that much of, if you want to get into litigation in divorce, you have to know that you're going to spend a lot of money. And for the most part, you're at the end of the process, you're going to wonder, what did my money get me? Because you find yourself, the law is the law. So say, for example, the custody issue. Custody and divorce. For the most part, many countries, many states in the US talk about joint legal custody. Then if you have a couple that decides, or one person that decides, I'm going to fight for sole legal custody, while everything tells you, for the most part, you will end up at joint legal custody. You're going to start fighting for sole legal custody, trying to prove and ultimately end up at joint legal custody. And all this money that you spent, because, the lawyer is going to do what will advise you, but then has to do what you want to do. So if you tell me you want to fight for sole legal custody, I'm going to tell you then, well, we're going to need to hire experts. We're going to need to show why it is that you have to have sole legal custody. So, but then when you see that for the most part, joint legal custody is what happens. And again, as I tell many of my clients, that look, up until this divorce time, you are divorcing. This person was, a co-parent and somebody who you could parent your children together. So, and the other thing I say, somebody may be the worst spouse, but the best parent. So, right. So when you come with that mindset in your divorce process, where is it that you're saving money?
You're frozen.
So
you're
that
back. You're back. You are frozen for a second.
So think about where it is that you can save money, and you save money by immediately figuring out, how can we resolve our divorce? Okay, if we talk about custody, where are you going to be living? Where am I going to be living? How can we have these children, be able to see both of us and be able to benefit from both of us jointly? That could mean that you might need to live in, close proximity if you want to see your children. And that may be a sacrifice that you may have to make.
Yeah.
So think about that. If you can do that, you've saved costs on your divorce.
Yeah.
The other thing is, now you're thinking about property.
Yeah.
So you will have somebody who will come and tell me that, well, when we bought this house, let's say they married a home, when we bought this house, I put the down payment, back then, and, she doesn't pay anything or he doesn't pay anything. I got my job now, mostly now. And I find this particularly in the case of women, because let's say, how, women come, they very quickly get, their jobs, these jobs that they're getting paid high, good money, not as much as the man, perhaps. And then when it comes to the issue of, well, what do you mean I have to pay him alimony? Well, what do you mean that I have to, that this house that I bought with my money, my money,
you have to sell it.
We have to sell it, and I have to give him half of it. But that's where you come up against the law and culture and our traditions, that you come with this precept that, well, he was supposed to be providing, he didn't provide. Now I provided. Now, well,
that
this
doesn't
is
apply here.
So then the cost of divorce goes up the more you're fighting these things that are just, what the law says they are. It's very difficult to be able to separate, especially if you've lived a house as the married or home, be able to say that actually this down payment I made was not a gift to the marriage, because it is presumed to be a gift to the marriage.
Yeah.
And there you have it. So if you just say, look, we're getting divorced, move on, let's divide up what we have fairly, and move on, then you have the opportunity to do even more, but then you will end up spending a whole lot of money. Whole lot of money, and you'll be trying to figure out what were my results, and you won't see them that clearly.
Okay, so got you. So basically what you're saying is you also should sit down, put your differences aside that are making you divorce, and try to save some money by both of you agreeing this is how we're going to move forward with our divorce. This is what we're going to do with the custody, because the minute it gets now to the system and you have to, he has a lawyer, she has a lawyer, it becomes very, we're not trying to take jobs away from you people, but it becomes very dirty and very, very expensive. But we know some divorces are messy, and there are people who are just not able to sit down and agree on what to do. So that's how they end up. But it's good to have knowledge that it can cost you a lot, I guess, from what you're saying. It can be very expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, there's still a place for us, make no mistake, there's still a place for us. You have, if you can't, like what you just said, what you just said, that we can't sit down, like we can't be in the same room together. We have these things, we have an opportunity, mediators. So we have people mediate who know family law. They will sit down with you and, try to, bring you into some consensus, and then you're done. If there's anything that you will take away from here, is that your money really belongs in your pockets and not in lawyers' pockets, because you've worked really, really hard for it. There is a place for lawyers, because we'll be there, we'll draft the settlement agreements, and make sure that you're all protected. Whatever needs to be done is done. Please don't draft your own settlement agreements. Because they will, if there's anything that brings you back in court, is badly drafted settlement agreements. So as long as you have, your understandings of how things are going to go, good faith, fair dealing, then you have your settlement agreement drafted by a lawyer. And then, the divorce process is a court process. So you still need to, I mean, you can do it yourselves if you don't, again, I'm talking about the people with property. And we haven't even talked about people with property in Kenya. which is a whole other, dimension of how to deal with it in court in the United States.
So does the law here that actually, and I meant to ask you that then, so if someone is married here, and this is wide because there are people who come to America when they're already married. So they come here as a couple, they have their wedding certificates or whatever. There's also the customary, the traditional marriages in Kenya. Are those honored here in America? And can you divorce in America and negotiate properties you have back at home, or now you have to go back at home to court and try to fight there?
So it's very dependent. And that's why, number one, you want to, come up with your solutions.
Yeah.
So I'll say two things. New Jersey does not recognize common law marriages. Countries, states like Pennsylvania, I understand, do.
I thought New Jersey has common law. What is common law has but common law wife? No?
No, it doesn't. No, no, there's not even common law has it's you have to be legally married.
What is this I hear? If you stay, let's say, we call them in Kenya, you stay with a boyfriend for, okay, of course, every state is different, 7 years, whatever number of years, they automatically become your husband. And no, there's nothing like that? Really? I thought I had something like that. Okay.
Like,
no common law husband.
Especially when you hear the word, it automatically becomes. You just like, no.
Okay.
Make sure. So I think what you're talking about is something that we know as when people have it's a palimony. So it means that when people have lived together, it's something that is tantamount to a marriage, right? So they're mutually supported, but they were not married, but they lived together, and there was a promise of support from one person to another. That can give rise to a claim for palimony, meaning that you can come to court and say that this person promised to support me, and so I'm coming to claim palimony based on this long-term relationship that we had. But no 7 years, no nothing. And you gotta have your marriage certificate. If somebody's not marrying you, no marriage certificate. Just the marriage certificate is what is operative. Anything else, you find yourself now in this limbo where there's long litigation on trying to figure out what you were.
Okay.
That's because you never defined it. So, and I believe even if you're coming to the United States, if you're, anyway, I don't know. But even if you're leaving Kenya and if you're going to have property in Kenya and whatnot, that's when you realize that these documents and this paperwork and these, your marriage certificate and this and that, all those have meaning and actually give rise to some legal claims just based on these documents. So they're not to be taken lightly.
Question for you. Can a married couple that are going through divorce, okay, let's say they're able to talk, all right? They're not one of those like they can't see eye to eye. Can they agree? We're going to go back to Kenya. We're going to have our divorce in Kenya because it may not be as expensive as here. They divorce in Kenya. Can that divorce be honored by the American system?
It can, as long as they agree, because sometimes what happens, yes, they can, because all you come is now come here and register it. But now what happens is, what the thing that I see that comes to me is somebody went and got divorced in Kenya, right? And this person could already, and the spouse here may even have been knowledgeable about the divorce in Kenya, but some things were not addressed. It never addressed custody of the children. It never addressed support of the children or, property that's here. And then that makes it that, yes, register the divorce here, but we are going to deal with those issues here in New Jersey.
And all that, the child support.
So I get that. But again, if you're in the United States and you're trying to do things, even if you're going to do that, speak to an attorney first before you do that.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. So because everything has to be covered. And you still have to come here and register, finalize with an attorney, whatever you have agreed. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. You actually, not even with an attorney, you can just go and apply in
the local courthouse.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And
perfect.
for the divorce to
child support. If you have shared custody, 50-50, is there child support to be paid there, or is neutral? Because the husband has, or the ex-husband has the kids 50% of the time, you have the kids 50% of the time, or is there a primary person? Because even if you have shared custody, these kids can be going to school from, unless you live in the same town.
Right.
When it comes to child support, I'm trying to figure out if you have 50-50, who pays who? Or is that now there's no child support because
So this is what I say, especially if you've come to some kind of agreement, and what I have seen now, and actually, you know, of course, having raised children here now, the better way to do it, in my estimation, is the two of you, if you have a pure 50-50, is to say, let's now do a budget for these kids. And this is how much we'll be contributing for the support of these children together. So you get away from, because when you do the guidelines or this thing, the child support guidelines or the official guidelines, it'll never be enough. Because for the most part, you know, somebody will be paying you maybe $100 a week, you know, because maybe if you're not earning as much, it will never be enough. The better way, I think, to do it, and more fairer way to do it, I think, is, you know, sit down, put a budget for these kids. And again, that way, you both know how much you're spending. It's, I think, the more financial prudent way to do it.
Okay. And then just register whatever you've agreed. Alimony in divorce. Who gets to pay who? Why does somebody get paid alimony or the other person told to pay alimony? I think most people understand child support and divorce. Alimony is just this thing out there that most people, especially our Kenyan community, because we don't have things like those back at home. You've gone through a divorce and one person is told, not only are you going to pay child support if there's child support to be paid, but you're going to pay her alimony. And how long is alimony? Is it the rest of her life or his life?
Yeah, and her or him.
Yes.
Yes, it's both ways. And I tell you, the challenging part is to the him. That is just, now that is a complete, it's mind-blowing. But anyhow, it's a fair thing to do, because alimony basically speaks to that, you know, when you're getting divorced and this is the way you lived your life, and there was this income, that no one should be disadvantaged because a divorce has taken place. Right. And so alimony looks at the need of the person and the ability of the other person to pay. So we are looking at the differences in income. And so, you know, what it makes, it's more significant, I'll say, you know, when you're between the 15 and up mark. It makes, you know, then you're in alimony territory. When I say what differences in income.
What do you mean 15?
15,000.
15,000 difference?
In income.
So let's say one party earns 50K and the other party earns 5. And it doesn't matter whether it's the man or the woman. It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
when it comes to alimony.
Yeah, so we are starting from there, right? So we start, so that's one factor. The differences in the income, right?
Yeah.
We are also looking at, but what if she can still, or he can still meet her need based on her income? Okay. So, but to keep it clean, we just say, okay, the differences in the income. We also look at the number of years. So let's say, so between 0 and 3, we're not really talking about alimony. We're not really, at least in New Jersey.
Okay.
But between 3 going up, then we are talking about, you know, some amount of alimony, and which is not to say that even in 0 to 3 you can still pay. I mean,
wow.
all very, it's all very, if you have children,
Yeah.
if person worked and the other person did not work because they took care of the children, all these come together.
Yes.
And they put this thing together and they say that, you know what, then somebody needs to pay alimony. The first sign that it is an alimony case, to me, when I look at it, is the differences in the income and the number of years of marriage. Okay. So I usually will tell someone that you have alimony exposure. Okay. Then after that, it's negotiating how much it's going to be, if at all. Because some people do walk away from alimony.
Okay, but is it forever? If there's a case where there's alimony, does that mean the paying party, the receiving party, that goes on, there's no end to it? It's not like child support. There's no end to it.
No, alimony. So if it's a 20 and above years of marriage, we talk about it being open durational, meaning it will terminate, let's say in New Jersey, it will terminate at the time of retirement and so on. Okay. And then anything less than that, we just normally say, I don't know, like half the number of years of the marriage, something like that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so if it's 10 years, you say maybe 5.
What happened where the receiving party, because, let's say, for example, where you say the difference is $15K. So what if a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll add a very good job, and now the person who's receiving alimony is earning twice or 3-4 times as much as the paying party? Do you go back to court?
No, because your settlement agreement does say that your settlement agreement takes care of that. It says that, we have agreed that this is the alimony we are going to pay. Wow. And no matter whatever change of circumstances occur, because at the same token, the person can get a whole bunch of money or can then also be impoverished. So at some point, you just have to say, this is the end. And if they go and win the lottery, this is it.
Wow. That's crazy. That is crazy, but it's good to know. Really quick, prenup. Is prenup necessary before marriage, or is prenup a deal breaker? Does it help to have a prenup before marriage?
I'm so glad you said that, because that's like my next thing now, right? Okay. So prenups are things that, particularly, I will say, for people, people are getting married, having acquired, having built, homes, or have, you're not getting married when we were all, starry-eyed and just starting from scratch, for the most part. And I'll say, for those people who are doing that, a prenup is necessary. I'll also say, even for people who are like starting up with like college debt, a prenup is should be considered by anyone thinking of getting married. Okay,
say that again, because if you marry, and most cases here, people have college debt, college loans, whatever. If you don't have a prenup, and God forbid you end up divorcing, he or she can inherit your college debt.
It can come into play in certain things. It's not going to say, it's not going to be that. Okay. It's not going to be that you may be made to pay for it. But then again, but more than anything, this is what a prenup does. A prenup, when you do one, you set forth your assets and liabilities. It is an essential requirement of the document. You set forth your assets and liabilities. Okay. So even for the person who does not have, who's starting and, just graduated from college, at least you have knowledge about what this person has. So do they have assets? Do they have liabilities? What are they? So then you know where you're starting from. Okay. And in a prenup, you have the ability to say that, we'll have this prenup for a set number of years. And then after that, we have what is called a sunset clause on the prenup. Oh, okay. But more importantly, it's for, people who are going into second marriages, people who have been through a divorce, and you're marrying again and you don't have a prenup, or at least figured out, do you need one? you know, you think about now, do I want, if this happens again, am I going to disadvantage? Because remember, if the person who bought the house,
Mm-hmm.
the one we talked about way before, had a prenup.
Mm-hmm.
And that's taking that, because in a prenup, you can say, if I put a down payment, I expect to be paid off. At the time of a divorce, I want my down payment out. And then we can divide the rest.
Yes, I got you. So it's important. Although some people don't do it because I guess most people fear that it's a deal breaker. I'm about to get married to you. I'm asking for a prenup, or you're asking for a prenup. So does that mean you're coming into the marriage with a mindset of like, we're going to divorce and all that? But you're still saying, no, get one.
Yeah, we have to demystify the same way we've demystified divorce, because now who's looking at you today and saying that, oh my God, look at them, they got divorced.
Yeah.
No, nobody's looking at that anymore.
Yeah.
So the same, demystify prenups and say that they really are protections.
Yeah.
And really it's like your full disclosure document.
Yeah.
It's a full disclosure document prior to your marriage.
Okay.
And at any point you can say that, look, at some point I want to sunset this. And that's fine. We can do that too. So
wow.
yeah, so
that's a lot of information. That is good. That is really, really good. Man, we're gonna have to have you back here, because we are almost going almost 2 hours. I thought we are gonna be here for so definitely we're gonna have you back. But something that maybe outside of your area of practice, I'm not sure. Arbitration.
Yes.
Most people, when they get jobs, and if it's not in your area, we can just pass. Most people get jobs working with companies that send you these documents that you sign, that, in case there is something happen in future, you agree to arbitration. I think by law you can, well, I don't know whether it's by law, but I think almost every agreement you can opt out of arbitration. Can you be fired from a job if you opt out of arbitration, or can a company terminate contract or something like that? Or is this outside of your field?
It is a little bit outside. It definitely is outside of my area of law.
Okay.
What I would say is, one, it depends on, first of all, the job that you have, because depending on the level that you're being hired at. Let's say, for example, like an associate versus the CEO versus the CFO.
Yeah.
So it's your negotiating power. What do you have the power to negotiate, right? So usually, for arbitration clauses, it just mainly says that this is how we are going to resolve our disputes.
Yeah.
We have this up. We're saying that we are avoiding the court process, because when you go to the court process, you're going through, it's going to be years and years. Arbitration, you go there, 2, 3 weeks, you're in and you're out, and you're done.
Okay.
You have the ability to get your own lawyer. So it is something that is outside of the court system and the court calendar. Okay. So depending on your negotiating power, and again, also how important this job is for you, it's one of those things that you just have to live with. Like, okay, if they tell me that I have to arbitrate, and
but that means if they fire you unfairly, you can take them to court. You have to go through arbitration, which maybe most of us think that arbitration will favor the company versus you.
Correct.
And you cannot go to court because you already signed up and never opted out of it.
Absolutely. So the one thing I would say is, one, again, it's all dependent on the position and that you're getting hired for.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking about the court process. So let's say it's me, right? I'll say it's now me after years of, being here and having educated myself in this system. So I completely understand somebody, just freshly coming here and like, arbitration, and it from going to court. What I would say is this: how important is this clause to me, into my grand scheme and my career? Okay, what am I anticipating in this job? Am I anticipating that, okay, I might be in a position where, even when I find myself in a position where I've been discriminated against,
Yes.
where do I want to take that? Do I really want to go to court, or do I want to be like, if this situation is not working for me, should I be looking for a job elsewhere while I still can?
I got you.
Meaning that the focus should not be on, these arbitration clauses. It's like, okay, how is this job serving me? But when you're talking about somebody who is in these, higher or whatever, I don't know how important, I keep going back to how important this job is to you.
Okay.
So that then at that point, then you're talking to a lawyer and saying, hey, how should I take this arbitration clause?
Okay.
And it helps to just, speak to a lawyer who can, an employment lawyer, and run that through them and see how best to deal with it. Yeah.
All right. Makes sense. So thank you so much. I have one final question for you. Because of your legal mind, this is totally not about the laws here, but I want to hear your take on this from maybe just a common sense and also somebody who knows the law. If a child runs away from home in Kenya, okay, we're just talking about now, because we're going to have Kenyans watching this. If my child runs away from home because they don't want to live by my sets of rules, a teenager comes to your house, should you keep that child or should you return them home? Can you just do a family meeting and decide now he's ours, so we're just gonna stay with him, not get permission from any government authority? And can person in America partner with the person who has decided to keep that child? Me who is here in America, I know that somebody is keeping somebody else's child illegally. I partner with that person and I become that kid's sponsor. So I'm going to be taking care of this child. And the legal guardian of the child is asking for the child back, but somebody is saying, no, I can't, this child right into my house. You're not a good parent or you're not a good legal guardian. I am keeping him and I have a sponsor in America. So we're going to educate this kid. What do you think from just even common sense?
Wow. We do things like these, or somebody would do things like that from thinking about it from an initial point is that I'm helping.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm coming from a place of this child has come to me and now I'm helping them. And then but then all these other things now start to happen. And at some point, this person who's helping, the question will ultimately go back to them, because there's helping to make sure that the person has, 3 square meals, has a safe place to be. Once you have addressed their safety concerns and the ability to feel secure, then there comes the other point of it, which is on what basis, legal, most importantly, do you have this child in your custody? Because then at some point, something could happen to this child, and then now who would be liable for them legally? And on what basis were they with them? And then this other person who's here, even us who are here and are willing to, help, we need to know where our money is going, or who are these people that we really are helping. Because I think I hear you that, people will come with campaigns and we are all always want to help. But in a situation like this, the help is not to continue keeping this child in a place that he is not supposed to be in. Is, if you're helping, is to facilitate the return of this child, and the person really who you should be helping is a legal guardian. So I think that's who you should be helping, so that this child is returned to where he is supposed to be, where he is legally supposed to be with a person who is the legal guardian, so that then you don't have this split of a family where the intent is to keep the family intact. And really the legal guardian should be going to court to make sure, or at least to we call it like a declaratory judgment or something, some restraints, or an injunction to prevent this person from housing and require the return of the child back to.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's what I personally thought. I think we have to be careful so we are not being used to, as much as we love to support, because that same person had done that with 2 kids, where she will take kids and then say, now I need a sponsor from America, and somebody here will say, oh, I'll be the sponsor. And I thought at some point that could land somebody in a lot of trouble, because now you are partnering with somebody who has almost kidnapped somebody else's child, and you are the American partner. That could go south while you meant to do good.
Absolutely. Kidnapping or trafficking.
Yeah,
it could fall in one of those.
Yeah.
It just as easily, while you think you're just innocently helping.
Yeah.
And so this extrajudicial, things that we do, even if we have we are driven by good intentions. We have to be careful.
It can come back. It can come back at you. And the laws here, especially when it comes to kids, you might think that you're just helping some innocent child in Kenya, but you don't know how the whole thing is going to unfold over there. So sometimes, like we say, it's good to step back, analyze the situation, make sure, hey, you have this child, do you have legal documents? Were you given custody? Let me see the custody, and then I can partner with you. We educate this boy. That's what I thought. But Wamaitha, thank you so much. You've given us so much information. I know there's so much. I'll bring you another time, but take a few minutes, talk to us about your law firm, how people can get in touch with you, because I know some people have learned so much. And if you live in New Jersey and you need a family attorney, definitely you can see she has a wealth of knowledge. And I think she'll come back over and over again and talk to us about these issues to educate our community. But talk to us about your law firm and how people can reach you if they needed to talk to your representation.
Oh, thank you. So my firm, I'm in New Jersey, in Middlesex County is primarily where I'm based, but I represent people all over the state of New Jersey. You can reach me. I have a website. If you Google Lois Kahagi, you will see my website. The easiest and the better way to reach me is by email, because then that way I'm able to see it and process it. So my email is lois@wlk-law.com. I have my phone number. In my office number is 732-662-1080. And looking forward, and basically what I do, because again, like I told you, I've always felt that, I'm like a Kenyan lawyer, and at least even if I cannot represent you, I will be able to give you direction where to go, like the way we discussed the arbitration clause and things like that. So, you can call me, you can email me, you have questions, you understand that my advice to you does not mean that I'm legally representing you and so on. It does not create an attorney-client relationship and all that, all the small print. But that's it. Happy to help. Anytime I'm on Kwitu, I kind of, I give my comments there as well. And as needed. So thank you very much.
Wamaitha's website, phone number, and email will be pinned at the description box. So if you need to visit her website, you need to get in touch with her. So I'm going to make sure all that information is pinned. So it's always going to be underneath this video. Thank you so much, Wamaitha. You have really given us a wealth of information. A lot.
And if you need me any other time, you can always reach out.
Amazing. All right. We will see you in the near future.